Alright. Tadaima. Irashaimase. I am not wanting a brain pilot here to feel offended by my intentions to listen to his video on my stream. In fact, I would like for him to get credit. I am going to first put him over here in my in the second part of this template. See, it says template 1. Some of this I don't need to read so much as I just know where it is, and the colors help me figure out where to go. So this is 2, and I know it's 2 because it's red and there's a pound sign. Pound sign is what old people call the hash mark, and the word 2. And in this place, I'm going to write down, I'm not doing exciting coding here. I'm just putting in some stuff so I can find this later. Yeah, it makes sense then that I will post it in. So let's duplicate this. Hit pause again. I'm going to view my channel. Now, that's an ugly picture of me, but you know, such is life. That's my channel. So this video, the recording of what I'm doing right now, is going to go in that channel, and it makes sense then for me to put the link, girl for posted video, right here. And what I'm doing is creating a workflow. Alright, so now I can, oh, I should probably not be swearing. Break, do I have a break? No. How about we just take off the flex part. Add a break here. Add a break here. And that gives me what I was looking for. So now I have, let's go to this guy's channel. Or girl, I mean, I'm not trying to judge gender based on the sound of somebody's voice. I talk like I don't have any teeth because I don't have any teeth. But I feel great compared to what I felt like when I had teeth, so it was a good decision for me. Alright, so this is this person triggered my trauma, and I'm dealing with it by posting this video. So, that's his video. Trying to remember what other easy options I have for, we'll just use another there. Oh, and another break. So, let's call this H1. Establishing a workflow. There we go. Establishing. Oh, look at how terribly I spell. I can't see very well. I think that's right. Establishing a workflow. What do you see on my monitor? You see this little cheat. It's a magnifier. I also have a camera that can help me see things. My iPhone, I think it's the number 14. It was available for me to get the new one, but I was wanting a number, and I didn't need an ID to get a new iPhone, but I did need ID to get a new phone number, which seems a little bit weird, but here we are. Establishing a workflow. This is not my Sea of Not project. This is my calf, like baby cow, calf, moo. project. Now, I'm establishing a workflow. So I want this guy to know that I am not trying to steal his content. So here we are giving him credit, brain pilot, and I can find how you should see. I don't even know what you is about, so whatever. Let's listen to this a little bit, and then we'll piece it apart and make an exceedingly long video that I can chop up later. Oh, I should put in here, I'm spoiling it for me. I don't have Hulu right now, and I have watched every other season. I didn't actually even know that this season was being released. So if you care about the spoilers, you're probably not watching this video anyway. I watched this show while I was estranged from my children for testifying against Trump's administration, against MAGA. I was introduced to Christian nationalism in 1992, and that was the very first time I had ever heard people I know talking about getting a Confederate flag in the White House like it was a capture the flag game at summer camp. And I wasn't even a part of the conversation. It turns out that my brother was trying to convince my friends that this was a great idea. And as an older sister, or a sissy, who loved my brother, still loved my brother to pieces, brothers even, but only one of them was in this conversation, because I never let my friends laugh at my brother. But when my friends pointed out that's called treason, I kind of shrugged and said, they're right. I don't think that Trump could have been reelected if people like me hadn't had our children held captive and estranged from us while we endured threats over all sorts of threats. And the government, instead of addressing those threats, endorsed those threats. And that's been going on now for 8.5 years. And there's some benefits from being estranged from all the people that I love, and that is that I feel a little bit more liberated and able to talk about things that I would have never talked about before. First, because of privacy issues. Second, because you don't want to talk drama, about family. And third, you don't want to report, the dirty laundry of your siblings. And there's oodles and oodles of reasons why we don't want to talk about people like me who had something happen to them that they didn't understand, and when they trusted the government and trusted the people around me, trusted my church, trusted my kids' school, trusted my certifier for the business of 20 years. All of those people ended up letting me down, and I can't blame any one of them. It's the en masse letting me down that I'm complaining about. And while we are not in a country as estranged from reasonableness as Gilead, whatever the place is that this is, I definitely could relate to June and Hannah having left my children with people who were the bad guys, because I had to trust that the good guys would keep the bad guys in check and help support them to, become the good guys. And it makes for a very complicated conversation. And even now, the only reason I'm able to talk about myself is because I know it's possible that popping my head up means that I'll go to jail for talking about myself, and trying to explain what happened to me. But I don't have that arrhythmia that my heart had when I tried to testify before. Some of that's because I'm not in pain. I've had my medical needs met now. I think professionals, it's fair for me to use their names. And Dr. Scott Cook had me assessed and said that I needed to see a physical doctor, or I was crazy. But they never bothered to get me to the physical doctor. and Kaiser has taken advantage of that over years. And I have doctors now that I feel like I'm finally getting appropriate medical attention for. And I have an urgency that I didn't have this whole time. So when I was watching this show in the past, I was still living in my trauma. And right now I am talking about my trauma, talking about the terror, talking about the terrorism, talking about how estranged from Christ Christian nationalists are, because I don't see us able to resolve this problem without being allowed to talk about it. And under Trump's first administration, it was the Democrats that were in control of Oregon that I had exposed corruption with. They used Governor Kate Brown and Attorney General Ellen Rosenbaum, threatened Boeing whistleblower Les Back, and told him that he would go to jail for encouraging me. And I remember the conversation. We had where you said, I really don't want to have to say this to you, but you have to, or I want you to know that they're threatening to put me in jail if you're not going to be quiet. And while I said, well, I'm not going to be able to stay quiet, that didn't actually manifest in me knowing what to say. And he's dead now. He didn't live long enough to know that he was right about Boeing. He taught us in Sunday school about the plug that would fall from a plane while it was in the sky. And the things that he said would happen ended up happening. And that wasn't because he's some prophet that talked to God. It was because he was an engineer that knew physics, and he knew of the risks that Boeing was taking with our safety. And he tried to explain that to the people who he is supposed to explain that to. I don't endorse violence at any level. However, I don't endorse violence at any level. Scared people act differently than people who aren't scared. Terrified people act even different, from people who are just scared. And as somebody who was trained in water to go swimming and did everything short of, I wasn't old enough to become a lifeguard, one of the things they say is there's nobody more dangerous than somebody who's drowning. So the more desperate people become, the more scared we have to be of our neighbor. And the only way to adjust that feeling, emotion, is for us to be allowed to talk to each other about the bad stuff that happened, because I would like to argue that there is way more good than bad to remember in my past specifically. There is way more good to remember about Les Back than bad that he, because he didn't behave gentlemanly in his somewhere along the line. And I am embarrassed that my government behaved like in this Handmaid's Tale, estranging me from my children. There was no accusation of violence against me. The only truth was that I asked for help because I had a physical problem that ended with me being in the ICU. I needed surgery to correct it. The surgery corrected it, and then I was hated because I reported violence. So this is going to be a long video, and nobody's ever going to watch it, but I'm going to put it out there because I need to put it out there, not because you need to be listening to it. This is my practice, and the better I get, the shorter it will become. But right now, this is what I can do today to try to reconnect with my children who are alive. And unlike June and Hannah, my children should be allowed to talk to me. The fact that the government has still tried to intimidate me away from talking to my children is not sustainable. And at this point, I think the right thing for me to do is put it out here in these long videos, and until I can get better at making short videos, because this is what a mother in pain sounds like. All right, so let's listen to a little bit more. I believe that if I talk along with this, I'm not violating anybody's copyright. I understand that we're allowed to have reaction videos, and heck, I'm like 17 minutes in and I'm only 1 minute into the video, so I'm definitely talking more than I am, taking from Brain's Pilot here, and I sincerely appreciate that this guy had this video up there so that I could know how it resolved itself, and I can make this video today. And since it was an emotional video for me to watch, it seems like a good video for me to post. I do think it's important to note that my now ex-husband, the father of my children, the son of a woman who proudly identified herself to my grandpa as a Russian gypsy whore, which made for some hysterical conversations. Anyways, with the benefit of hindsight and understanding trauma the way I do now, I feel like I ruined his life. And I have to remind myself that being young and in love is, something that we all are, hopefully, well, I mean, I can't be too horrified that I didn't understand his pain enough when I was that young and he was that young. And I think we definitely loved each other. I didn't ruin his life or take him on a path that was inappropriate in any way. We're a couple in love and trying to make our place in the world, and I think well of my ex, and I have always encouraged the kids to talk to him. And even though he has had a temper. The kids have never experienced any violence whatsoever, which is why it was even more horrifying that it wasn't their father. Oh my goodness. My sister at one point said it's okay for their uncle to hit them because hadn't their dad already. My sister literally said that. That was jaw dropping. And no, he had never ever hurt anybody like that at all. Um, he tried his best, and we did not do a very good job of supporting his uh, somebody who had experienced terror as a child. And having finally got to the point, I didn't leave Salem with a mental illness, but I've definitely, whatever mental illness I have now, I didn't leave Salem with. And I understand, though, now how violence can interrupt your intentions and make you look crazy, even though it's really just a symptom of trauma. I also didn't kill him. I believe he is still alive on the East Coast. I know where my kids are. I just can't talk to them because I get threatened with jail for telling them what honestly happened to their mother. And I don't know what lies were told to them, so I can't even possibly know which story I'm violating by exposing some whatever. I don't The people who wronged me loved my children enough. I'll just say enough. And it gets really, really complicated. Um, and I had one brother who was planning an insurrection since 1992, and I have another brother who experienced trauma as a kid caused by my dad. And one of the biggest reasons I certified a child care business was to take care of my brother's children so that they wouldn't be exposed to that same trauma that my dad imposed on my youngest brother. That made me cry because I want to come back. And right now, I don't know how to do that without going to jail in Salem, Oregon. And the fact that we are a threat to Trump because we're a sanctuary state, which is laughable on its face. But I can't go to Salem, Oregon because I will go to jail for telling truthfully what happened to me is something I can't quite reconcile in my head as to how this is true. I think we've just gotten ourselves into such a tribal mentality that we've quit paying attention to the big picture. The truth is we need people to critique our government. We need to have people who are willing to push the lines of like what's offensive, like cars. There's some guy who he's deceased now, but talked about however many words are obscene, and he could. George Carlson, is that his name? I'm not gonna look it up right now, but anyways, we need people to push the boundaries on what is profane, and we need to have a government that can handle asking the hard questions. There's somebody who asked Trump, started the question by, well, something about acknowledging the lies that he's told, and Trump just went on to the next person. Trump is not a guy who can handle critique. He is only interested in a loyalty, a blind loyalty, And the only way that guy got elected is by putting on the disguise of a Christian. There, we're told in the Bible to judge people by their fruit. That man's fruit is rotten. You can tell. Look what he locked up kids in cages his first administration. I remember crying because at least my kids weren't in cages. They were locked away from me, but they weren't in cages. And this administration, he's putting tourists in jail. He's putting people in jail for things that are horrifying. It is inexcusable. It is unchristian, and anybody who knows Jesus cannot say anything about this administration more than Jesus wept. People who are using churches to hide behind, who are using their church to hide behind sanctioning war crimes in Israel are offensive. I cannot understand how it is that we are this wrong.
Perseverance in general in not giving up, because the love that a mother has for their child goes beyond all leaps and bounds, and it shows that she'll do anything to get her.
He's saying here that she would do anything to get her, and in a way I kind of understand that, but I also don't think, I think my children understand I wouldn't do anything. I'm not going to kill somebody to come get her. I'm not going to bomb a church to go get them. They're not hers, but whatever. I have triplet sons who are now adults, and I still can't talk to them. Anyways, it seems like all I really had to do was kiss the king's ring, and I would be fine. All I had to do to see my children was become a Christian nationalist and tear the government apart and endorse an insurrection and arm people to fight their neighbors who are out in the field plucking vegetables that we all want to eat.
With Hannah being a few states of liberation away, Massachusetts, New York, Ohio, Colorado, and then Hannah, it showed that there was a lot of fighting that still needed to be done before they could potentially be reunited. As June said a couple of episodes back, liberating Boston wouldn't be the end. It would just be the beginning of the end.
Liberation Day. Trump had a Liberation Day. And on Liberation Day, I registered the 501c3 not-for-profit organization Growing Genkiness. There's already a brick in Portland's living room, already laid years ago, and I liked the summary that ChatGPT gave me of my presence online under the heading of Growing Genkiness. So growinggenkiness.me is a website, and I think I have the ChatGPT summary there that I was going to embellish on. And allostasis.studio is also something I'm trying to use. I have to remember not to put myself into crisis while I am remembering my crisis.
Gilead was a large force, and that was exactly the case. There were moments where we saw June was still more than not being with her, such as when she was holding on to Noah's ring.
You never forget. I'm a mother, and the one thing I knew before becoming a mother is that is the only job nobody can ever replace, is that biological mother status. I didn't have the anatomy to be a biological female father, or I didn't have any sperm to donate. I had to give the egg. So that was the only thing that I could do that was a job that nobody else on the planet could then replace me at. And yet, I do think it's important to recognize that, like I've cared for oodles of children over the decades, and um, teaching children to hate anybody is harmful, and I'm surprised that people go that route. But we were able to convince kids that their whoever dropped them off is still gonna love them even though they're gone for a while, and that kind of transition is a useful, you know, uh, uh, skill up, I guess. The dropping them off in Sunday school at the nursery, you know, that was something that they had to go a few minutes without their mother, and that was something they had to get through in order to develop, you know, emotionally and socially. But my dad, though, I remember him talking to me a few times over the years when he was at his most intense, where he would say something to the effect of, the only person who might love you any more than I do is your mother, and that's only because she carried you. And I I remember that.
And also, when she saw Janine being reunited with Charlotte, you could tell with the look in her eyes and the face that she had that she wasn't envious because she was obviously happy for Janine. But then,
It is nice to see that Janine ended up well, because she was dealt a terrible hand.
was a sense of wishing that she could experience that feeling. June found out that Commander Mackenzie had been promoted and he was moving in with his wife and also Hannah, meaning that Hannah, despite not being close, she was going to be 2,000 miles closer than she previously was, so it was a step in the right direction for June. When it came to June and Serena, there was actually a powerful moment where June actually forgave Serena for everything following them saying goodbye to one another.
I think that forgiveness, I've said frequently that Nazarenes start with forgiveness because there's nowhere else to start. Chuck Perry was the youth pastor that I remember driving that home on the side of the Willamette River, and he was making the point, you know, they make it longer than I'm going to make it right now, but of saying, look around you. We're well fed. We've had fun in the water. The sky is, you know, the sun is shining. We have our needs met. We, you know, our God already won. And that puts you in a place where forgiveness is possible.
I didn't think that June ever would, but what this showed was that she was willing to put all of the trauma behind her and the turbulence that came with Serena, and look to move on. After all, Serena was one of the main reasons as to why Boston fell, as she got the information on the commanders going to DC, so she did pick the side of good over evil in the end. When it came to the ending, June leaned back into the fact that she had this desire to continue to fight, and even though Holly and her mother were flown out of Boston, she was going to continue working with Mark and looking to liberate the states that Gilead had a hold over.
I like Ecclesiastes. I understand most people don't even care or have bothered to even read it, but the reason I like Ecclesiastes is because it talks about how there's a time for everything, how there's different seasons for different things, and there is a time to fight, and then there is also a time to be meek. And I have a hard time figuring out which way I should be applying my efforts right now. So I think what I have to do is just be willing to be vulnerable so that I can figure out what to do next with the people who are most prepared to help me figure out what to do next. I hear TikTok has some great community support. I'm not on TikTok. This is way too long of a video. I do have some TikTok. I don't have a social history, or I don't have habits right now. I'm trying to figure out what habits I want to be putting in place, which is why this whole thing says it's establishing a workflow right at the top there.
And aim to protect the children, as they were the future in all of this. Many children were missing, which was shown to us by the posters, and June knew firsthand what it was like to experience that, so she wanted to reunite the families. June said to Holly, You don't have to be near mummy to feel her love. It'll find you no matter where you are.
That's important. I think it's important that we all understand that if our mother is a healthy person, she loves you. She wants the best for you, and she would not be estranged from you, except that something got in the way. And for some people, that thing is drugs. For some people, that thing is violence. For some people, that thing is career ambitions, whatever. I mean, we all have the thing that we try to balance. Um, but I hope that my children know that there isn't a day that goes by where I don't think of them before my eyes have even opened in the morning.
With Holly, I kind of hope that's true. June was barely with her, but in all seriousness, this was true for June. But I also think it was applicable for how she's felt about Halloween kids, knowing that even though she can't be with her, she's been hoping that her love will still find her. In the final third, June was being told that she should write a story about her experiences with Gilead, and rather than position it as a book that's filled with horror, death, and devastation, she should frame it around the fact that she was a warrior and a fighter, and mention the people that helped bring the oppressive hand of Gilead down.
I'm not sure that I'm going to watch this whole video because I'm already like a half hour in, and I don't really, well, I'm getting tired. So I can't imagine you're not getting tired of listening to me. I like what they're talking about, making it a video of or making a story that's about the warrior that she is now. And I wonder real quick, growing genkiness images. I used to be able to just type that and it doesn't show up right now. But I have a path. I have a postcard that actually got me in trouble with court because it starts with "Don't panic," and the "Don't panic" on it is in reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and then it shows my path on what my intentions were with PSU. And honestly, I'm still working that plan, and the plan always has been to reconnect with the people who helped me along the way and thank them for helping me along the way. And I think that the fear my mother for sure has about what I'm going to post online, because horrible stuff did happen, I think that they get stuck remembering what they did wrong to me. And I just remembered Sandman. I think that show is about that guy who is in the ball because they want him to promise that he's not going to be mad when he comes out of the ball, the glass ball or whatever. But the only way to get past it is to get through it and to be allowed to talk about it, be allowed to talk about what happened to me, be allowed to talk about what I remember. And when I remember something horrific, because horrible stuff happened, I think it's important for everybody to realize, not me, because I already know this lesson, that feeling is temporary. I know that I can get out of that feeling. I know that I'm going to laugh again. I know some of the ways to laugh again. I mean, cat videos are an easy one, right? Goldshaw Farm, I love watching his videos. In fact, this project right here that evolved from my Sea of Not, or Not Sea, see, Naughtsea. There's a knot right there, the zero with a line through it, and a C, right? So I'm trying to deal with my own trauma in a healthy way. And 8.5 years of people telling me not to talk about my trauma is 8.5 years too many. And at this point, the the only choice I have is either to go off and die alone or to be allowed to talk about it. And I think that I have a value, I have a reason to be alive. And anybody who is going to take the time to say otherwise is not right in the head. Healthy people do not go around telling people to kill themselves. And when I left Salem, I had all three of my siblings explaining to me why I should go off and kill myself. And that's not how you're supposed to treat your sister. That's not how you treat strangers, much less somebody who loves you and who took care of your kids. And all three of my siblings know that I was never a risk to anybody. There was no reason. I was required by law to report the violence that my children were enduring by their uncles. And taking 8.5 years to prevent me from talking about it still doesn't change the fact that it happened. All it is now there's 8.5 years of other stuff to talk about on top of what happened 8.5 years ago. The Salem Police Department called an adult walking across the room and walloping somebody else's kid. They called it mutual combat. And on its face, that is illegal. People on the side of MAGA want to have the right to call people all these slurs. I was absolutely just going to start saying them, but the one I'm going to be offended most by is weird, and I find that funny. Nobody uses weird as a slur if they're friendly with Portland, so just keep that in mind if you want the vote from people in Portland. You don't use weird as a slur. And they want the right to perform a Heil Hitler salute in my living room. I've had that happen to me this year. People are bragging about leaving swastikas around and and the inflamed emotions that come when they're found. Like, did you see that guy? He found a swastika and now he's got Trump derangement syndrome. That kind of nonsense. Life, we have a First Amendment right to make fools of ourselves. That is absolutely true. But what I find fascinating is how quickly people who voted for those guys, people who voted for the haters, people who voted for fear-mongering and apocalyptic prophecy and who are endorsing war crimes, because the Jews are not committing war crimes. The Jews are people all over this planet. Israel, Ben Netanyahu, he's committing the war crimes. I am not committing war crimes because Trump is committing war crimes. I'm not saying every Israeli is committing war crimes. In fact, I had been told that every Israeli has to do their time in the military. It turns out that's not true. There's a whole subset of people who live in Israel, the Orthodox Jews, who want nothing to do with Ben Netanyahu's wars against their neighbors. I don't understand why we are bombing Samaritans, whether they are good Samaritans or bad Samaritans. Jesus would be weeping. When I see my former pastor's wife posting on Facebook about how it's a miracle that Israel defeated Iran in just a couple days, I am seeing reasons for the Church of the Nazarene to be made bankrupt, because we can't have our spokespeople endorsing war crimes and then acting like people like me are the problem. Now, I understand that Les Back spit on her husband, and I talked to Les Back about that. The only reason I knew it happened is because he's the one that told me, and he said that I did it for your husband, mine, the guy that had a lot of childhood trauma. And when my kid was first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, honestly, I didn't have enough time to manage parenting a husband as well. And I wish that we had had a better support system in place, because now it looks and feels like he took on the burden of my ex-husband while he was still my husband, and it tore up his family too. So we're working really hard to prevent people from talking about the real stuff. Les Back's daughter, and his wife, his ex-wife, widow, whatever she is now. I remember them standing up in Celebrate Recovery and talking about wounds festering. One of the things that, I mean, you see drains hanging out of people after certain operations, whatever, because if you just close things up and let them fester and grow, they can cause you to become septic. And as a culture, we have been well, I would say that we're kind of septic. We've let things fester to the point where there's no choice but to lance it, let it get open, air it out, let some sun hit it, and we need to have some healing. And the healing can't happen if people like me are told not to talk. And if you want to support Trump on your social media, then it makes sense to me that somebody like me should be allowed to, in a sentence, tell you, I disagree with you. And then if you engage with that, then I'm engaging back, because talking about it is how we fix it. We don't fix it by telling people like me to shut up and go off and die alone. I'm not that mentally ill. If people had helped me with my physical problems, I don't think I would be triggered by a video about The Handmaid's Tale. I don't know what I'd be doing. Frankly, I'd probably be running a food truck. What I was planning on doing with PSU is putting together a food truck aimed at diabetics, using that whole Meals on Wheels program, so that we can all eat a little bit more economically. I mean, I don't need to eat steak and potatoes every night, right? And have somebody who can do the math for the insulin, so that when it comes to me and comes to my children, we're not having to do math every single meal, because the burden of diabetes is a huge burden. And it's not that hard if we just work through it together and normalize knowing what we're eating. But we live in a world where people are still tricking each other into eating things they don't want to eat, which is a whole nother conversation. So this is 50 minutes of, I guess, me putting my blogging my emotions and working on a workflow so that I am more concise, I am more articulate, and it will sound better, and I'm more productive, because I don't want to be talking about what happened 8.5 years ago. I don't want to be talking about Trump, but the only way to get rid of the guy, get rid of the criminal organization that is running our country, is to talk about it and be open about what we've experienced. And if you can't handle me telling the truth about why I am angry at the Democrats, Kate Brown and Ellen Rosenbaum, then it just doesn't work. We have to be able to have honest conversation, whether it be that I testified against Trump. I was talking to the Kremlin under Trump's first administration, because I was having a huge problem with Oregon's top government officials, because they were abusing their authority in my church. my authority in my church with that pastor's wife who was just talking about how Israel just ended a war in a couple days. They've been at war my entire life. They've been at war my entire stinking life. I remember in 4th grade reading a story about being born on the wrong side of a fence. It's a wrong side of a man-made fence. And if you... Israel is a terrible neighbor. It is not anti-Semitic to say that Israel is a terrible neighbor. I love Jews. Jews are just humans. They have a lot of trauma associated with World War II. I have a lot of trauma associated with Trump and Putin. I understand that the camps and stuff were horrific. I really like George Takei's approach to talking about his experience in the Japanese camps. And I studied the rape of Nanking. And I took heart pills the day that October 7th happened, and I took heart pills the day that January 6th happened, because on January 6th, the insurrection that I saw people planning from 1992 onward manifested, and we can't have honest conversation about it if we can't be critical of both sides. And I assure you, I have been humbled. There is nothing that you can say to me or about me that will hurt worse than I've already experienced. So if I need to be the person that you send your verbal darts at, then by all means send them to me, because I'm willing to badmouth both parties. I'm a registered NAV, non-affiliated voter, and I am an anti-disestablishmentarianist. I am not trying to... Our system is made from humans, and humans are fallible. The only way it works is if we're able to talk to each other. And I have spent 8.5 years terrified to talk to my own people because of MAGA. I'm even, if you noticed, got the word Nazi on my software here, because I am trying to desensitize myself, because the truth is that even the people who are wearing the word Nazi now, they're not the same as the Nazis during World War II. I've seen it on the backs of Asians. I've seen it on, I've seen horrible things. But at the very least, the white supremacists have already applied DEI. The only people who are being fired now for DEI stuff is because Trump has emotional problems that haven't been addressed. It's just that simple. And he's using Christians, and the only way he can continue to use Christians is by silencing people like me. So that means I need to speak more, not less. If you want me to speak less about MAGA, well, MAGA has to stop doing what they're doing, because they're killing people. They're hurting people. The cruelty is the point. And I'm saying that without crying. And I haven't been able to do that for like 8.5 years. So let's have a conversation now that I don't cry.